Hey, look out. It's FaithTalk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
You're watching Facebook Live, YouTube Live, on the radio. Those two specimens right there, Dr. David Delk and Dutch Nelson. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
I promise I won't bring up Alabama at all the rest of my life.
Roll Tide.
Dutch will do it for you.
I got you.
And I won't bring up the Braves losing to us yesterday once again.
Again.
But, hey, we're used to it. So
Yeah, the dogs are too. That's all right.
Ouch. Wow. Okay.
Hey, we wanted to get you guys on. We love having you on anyway, but we wanted to talk to you a little bit. Of course, Dr. David Delk from FCA and God's Warriors and Dutch Nelson, Driven to Redemption. I looked back, and this was before the passing of Anthony Biangasso. I was shocked and taken aback. But I looked back a few days earlier, I think, and I saw the interview that it was he and I. Doc, I don't know if you were there, but I know that Dutch was there in the studio. We were still in the studio.
Yep.
And then I just was thinking about, and we have talked to him since then, but I was just thinking about his story. And then the sad news was that last week that because of something happened after surgery, some post something, and he passed. What happened? Do you know? Can you share?
Dutch, you want to talk about that?
Sure. He had back in Anthony's wild days, he had some surgery while he was locked up, and all that. Anything I say about Anthony is an open book. So
right.
Just note that he had some surgery that was kind of like a shoddy kind of surgery years and years ago, and he finally had the opportunity to get it fixed, and kind of got delayed due to COVID. I think he was supposed to have it back in like March. So he finally scheduled it for that last Thursday, and went in Thursday and had the operation to try to fix this old surgery, this bad hernia. There's some kind of mesh that's in there that they were trying to get all that fixed. They did the surgery, and I may not have all the details medically, labeled correctly, but he went in for the surgery and got finished and actually was released to go home. And then when he got home, he ran into some complications, some pain, high level of pain. And for anybody that knows that guy, if he tells you he's hurting, he's hurting.
Yeah.
So ran back into some pain, ended up back in the hospital for some further evaluations and further surgery. To what level of detail, I've never really went into super detail, but they went back in there, and he ended up having some finished the surgery, to my understanding, and came back and was not feeling well. There's more details than that, but we'll keep it at that. And he ended up developing a blood clot, somewhere in the abdomen area, I think, somewhere in there, and it ultimately led to where it burst, or medically, I don't know the term, but it did something that caused a cardiac arrest. Then he had passed Sunday, the 11th, at 12:17 p.m.
Wow.
Amazing. And I mean, I know absent from the body, present from the Lord. I can say a lot of cliche things, but I think at first glance, first ear, was deeply saddened. I mean, what a story, what a minister, what a testimony. But I do understand that, that he's in a better place, and that's good. Your first thought, Doc, when you heard?
Well, my first thought was, I can't believe it. We saw Anthony. We've talked to him regularly. You hear the man's voice, and then you get a phone call. I got a phone call from Jadith that Anthony had come out of the second surgery and didn't make it, and it's just disbelief.
Yeah.
And then it turns to the sadness that you're not going to see your friend. but ultimately it turns into a great celebration of where Anthony is, the people that he touched, the life that he led after he became a Christ follower. He was 90 miles an hour all the time. And, Anthony just lived hard for the Lord after, in his last 3 years of life.
Talk about the ministry and the effect that he had on you personally, both of you. We'll start with you, David, since you were just talking about the impact that Anthony had on you.
Well, the impact Anthony had on me was for a very short period of time. I realized that I haven't even known Anthony for a year. He joined us at a God's Warriors show over in Paulding County. And, he was very quiet the first time that I met him. But the more that I got to know Anthony, you realize that this man loved Jesus and he had some time to make up. He was trying to redeem the time that he had lost, it seemed like. Of course, Anthony didn't know when he was going to leave, but it was almost like the Lord had put something inside of him to live all out for the last few years that he had. He loved kids. He loved the homeless. He loved feeding people. He loved serving. And I just admire the passion that he had for the Lord and the way that he served. One part of Anthony's testimony is after he got out of prison, he was behaving himself, but he wasn't doing much. And one day the Lord called him a coward and told him, he said, "You need to start living for me and not just sitting on the sideline." And so when Anthony heard that, that's all he needed to hear.
Yeah. Wow. Dutch, what about you?
Well, I've known the guy for, probably about 30 years.
Wow.
And we would mesh together and we'd get in trouble together. And then we'd part off, and then 10 years would pass and we'd get back together and we'd get in trouble together. And then he ended up going to prison. I ended up living life, and he got out. He called me in 2014 and he said, "We're going to be doing prison ministry together when I get out." I had been telling him about God's Warriors and FCA, my role at the time with FCA. And he told me, "We're going to do ministry together when I get out." And I was kind of like, all right, yeah. But it ended up, he got out in 2017, and it took, which was 3 years early, it took about a year for me and him to reconnect, even though we went to the same church. And maybe it was a little bit of him scared to get around me, and maybe it was a little bit of me scared to get around him. Nevertheless, God made that connection about 2 years ago, and he and I, over the last year and a half, have been serving together, 4 to 5 times a week. I see him 4 to 5 times a week for the last year and a half. I talk to him, 4, 5, 6 times a day. So I lost somebody dear to me, very dear to my heart. And I guess when you spend that kind of time together, Dan, like you and Rick, day after day after day, that would it's heart wrenching. But like David said, he goes 90 miles an hour, and it might even be 120. The guy does not stop. And just when you're ready to, we have our men's group every Wednesday morning at 3:30. Oh, well, that's when we get there to get the food prepared for the men to come in at 5:30. Because as David said, his heart is feeding people. He's a big old boy. He likes food. And just when I say, I don't really want to get up tomorrow morning, he would be that encourager. Come on now. And he'd always call me his homie. He calls all his buddies his homie. And, he kind of my accountability partner.
Wow.
Talking to Dr. David Delk and Dutch Nelson, and just kind of talking about Anthony Biangasso, Ant, who touched a lot of people's lives. I'd like to get into the celebration because I understand there was salvations and baptisms and wow. But what legacy do you think he'll leave behind for the others? I know last time we talked, Dan, he was feeding somebody. He was feeding folks on a Friday. He was feeding homeless people, and I think Jadith was there, and somebody else, just some kids were there.
Yep.
What legacy is he going to leave behind, David?
Well, some of the takeaways that I had, we went to the funeral service. Funeral services are usually, pretty good, but Anthony's was spectacular. 3.5 hours of spectacular.
Wow. Wow.
It was awesome. The 3.5 hours, you just heard testimony after testimony. But one thing that was always pretty clear in everybody's testimony was one more soul. Anthony always wanted one more soul. And he would do whatever it took for one more soul. And that left me hearing, for God's warriors, we got to fight for one more soul. Anthony would do everything in his power to make sure that every kid that received Christ had a Bible, and that every kid understood the gospel before he left, and every kid was touched and loved by Anthony Bengazzo.
Wow.
Dutch?
Legacy. Wow, I got to speak at his graveside, and we were at the memorial graveside service, and Pastor had me speak. And one of the things that I was amazed at, we talk about what he's left behind, which is it comes off of how he impacted people, right? And as we're going down in the funeral procession, people were out of their cars. I mean, you're talking about a 50-minute drive from the church to the gravesite. And I don't think a single car did not stop. Every single car stopped. There were people out of their cars raising their hand. Cops pulled over, hands over their hearts. Construction people with their hard hats across their heart. People holding signs down through Douglasville. As you're going down through downtown Douglasville, rest in peace. So he definitely had an impact. And as David said, he had always said, one more soul. And it was always his deal. And, I tried to get him with God's Warriors sooner than when he came on. And he said it took him, I think he said it on your show before, it took him to a dark place back when he used to lift hard, and it kind of scared him. But when that first show that he went to, he was hooked. And I think the one kid that got saved was a kid named Chase. It's a little middle school kid. And that started that, I guess that's when I recognized the one more soul just everywhere he goes. And he, it's a big boy, big shoes to fill, with his go and feeding everybody, and nobody's going to fill it. Nobody's going to fill the position. We can say we want to, and I'm all in, we're going to fill it. And it's just, he's just a different guy. Just a different guy. Even the people that he impacted in a negative manner back in the day that have, changed their life as well. They always will say, Anthony was an encourager. You'll follow him, whether he's doing good or bad. He's just that kind of guy.
Wow. Talking about Anthony Bengazzo, passed away last week. No doubt when he stands before Jesus, he's already seen him, but there'll be a day he'll stand before him and Jesus will say, "And well done."
Well done.
And he'll say, "Those are big biceps."
And the food line is to your right.
No doubt.
Real quick, I just want to touch on something, David Delk. You just became a grandfather again just last week, was it?
It was.
Congratulations. You got pictures ready to go right there to share with everybody?
Oh, I wasn't.
What kind of grandfather are you, David? Come on.
Hey, I will tag you guys on everything that I do from here forward on my baby.
We'll buy you a candle just to celebrate. All right.
Thank you. No, just give me a baby tutu.
Okay.
I'm sure that tutu will have Crimson Tide on it.
Yes.
Hey, guys, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. And you had impact on him. Thank you for not giving up on him.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for giving him a place to grow, to preach, and to fulfill his course. And like Paul, he finished his race. We all thought too soon, but God knows better.
Yep.
We appreciate you guys, and certainly we appreciate his passion and his life. We'll not forget him. Hey, let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.